Arrowhead Studios just put out their first major balance patch for Helldivers 2 the other day, and people are... yeah, they're feeling a certain way about it, because a couple of community favorite options got hit with a nerf, including who could have predicted the Railgun and the Breaker. I'll go ahead and link the patch notes down in the comment section if you want to read them all on your own. But one question I immediately had people asking me was, what is the new, quote, best loadout in the game? And before I give my own personal answer, I want to again go on the record and say, use what you want. Just because I or any other content creator out there recommends any loadout doesn't mean it's the end all be all. And it definitely doesn't mean you should be a dick or mean to randoms or fellow democracy spreaders out there who are using stuff that they enjoy. Don't be that guy. And with that, let's talk loadout. The Breaker shotgun is the first thing we need to talk about because it took a nerf in the form of a smaller mag and more recoil. I gotta be honest, in using the new Breaker out in the wild, still pretty damn good. The damage or rate of fire hasn't been touched at all, so it'll still shred through all the usual low to mid tier enemies just as well as it used to. One thing I'll say for sure though is that I definitely noticed the smaller mag now. I think my muscle memory has been pretty fine-tuned after using a ton of Breaker for so long, and if you're like me, you'll probably find yourself in a few situations where your mag runs dry way sooner than you expect. Other than that though, yeah, the Breaker's still hot, but I have two more primary recommendations to add onto the pile that are equally hot. The first is the SG8 Punisher shotgun, which caught a few nice buffs in the form of deeper ammo reserves, more damage per shot, and increased stagger, aka shooting an enemy and stopping them in their tracks or slowing their roll a little bit. The other gun, which is slowly becoming my go-to primary, is the SG8S Slugger, which, although not mentioned in the patch notes anywhere, seems to have gotten a stealth buff. Just like the Punisher, the Slugger also got an ammo capacity buff from 40 to 60, leading me to believe it may have gotten all the other buffs the Punisher got because they're just slightly different models of the same shotgun. Either way, the Slugger goes hard. You will probably have to adjust mentally with the slower rate of fire than both the Punisher and the Breaker, but the punching power is ridiculous. On its own, the Slugger can easily smoke bile spewers, which is awesome because those things are a massive pain in the gooch at higher levels of play. It's also great at killing stalkers, which is greatly appreciated. The Punisher isn't as strong, but it has a good rate of fire that is right there in between the spam heavy Breaker and the slow Slugger, and definitely feels worth your time after the update. At the end of the day, I'm a hard recommend you try out the Slugger. If it doesn't feel like a good fit for you, just go back to the Breaker, which hasn't really been nerfed that badly, or whatever else you feel fits your playstyle. For the record, yeah, the flamethrower did get a buff, and while fun as hell, I think at the end of the day, it's just a flashier way of accomplishing the same thing that the Breaker, the Punisher, and the Slugger all accomplish, but without needing to take up a stratagem slot. But again, you do you. Next up, let's talk armor. The recent Helldivers 2 update finally fixed a long-standing and annoying problem in the game in which armor values didn't really mean anything or matter at all. Thankfully, that problem is no longer an issue, and it now gives us way more to work with. I have 3 outfits that I feel really good about wearing right now. First, light armor with the Scout passive trait, which makes it so that you're harder to detect by enemies. With the Railgun nerf in effect, which I'll talk about shortly, one of the best ways to deal with heavily armored enemies is to straight up avoid them if you can. The groups I usually play with split up to handle objectives faster, and armor with the Scout trait is great for just kind of getting by unnoticed. That definitely won't be something you can take advantage of 99% of the time, but when it does work, it works great. Second, my tried and true DP40 medium armor with the Democracy Protects trait, which gives you a 50% chance of flat out not dying when taking potentially lethal damage. Still a fantastic option IMO. And finally, we have the B01 Tactical Medium Armor. Yeah, that's right, the first goddamn armor we get in the game. I love this armor right now because you get the standard 500 sprint speed of other medium armor, but you get a 150 armor rating, aka the same value as heavy armor, but with none of the downsides. And yeah, heavy armor looks significantly more badass, but the lack of speed and stamina regen is still a bummer, and the B01 dodges all of that. Always a good sign when my first match trying out the B01 with armor values finally mattering and I somehow made it out of a max difficulty mission with no deaths. Granted, there may have been some 500 kg shenanigans going on out there, but that's besides the point. For your backup gun and your grenade, nothing really has changed there. Keep using whatever you like. I've recently come around on the P4 Senator, mainly due to its respectable armor punching abilities. Not on anything really heavy, of course, but lightly armored enemies the Senator will punch right through, and that's always a plus. The Senator would probably pair well with the Breaker shotgun, while the faster shooting pistols would IMO pair better with either the Punisher or the Slugger. Alright, let's talk stratagems, starting with the big ass elephant in the room, the Railgun. The Railgun got a nerf in the form of decreased armor penetration in safe mode and decreased damage against durable enemy parts. The keywords there being in safe mode. If you use the Railgun in safe mode, A, why, but B, yeah, you're gonna notice that it's straight up cheeks at breaking armor now. Shots can and will bounce right off a charger like they're nothing. But as we all know, we should always be changing the firing mode to unsafe mode for maximum democracy. As long as you don't hold the charge down for longer than 3 seconds exactly, you won't explode and you get all that armor piercing goodness at full power. Currently, Chargers and Bile Titans both seem like they take more shots to kill even in unsafe mode. Again, that is probably tied into the decreased damage against durable enemy parts part of the Railgun nerf. Hard to explain, but you'll definitely notice at high levels that you're pumping way more shots into these dudes than you were before. Believe me, you can still get the job done, but it's definitely going to take a little bit longer if you're the only one shooting them or if you're not holding the charge shot long enough. If you hold the Railgun charge shot really long, you definitely get that old feeling back of the Railgun being godly. But yeah, make sure you don't die. I recommend trying to keep an eye on the gun itself while you're charging shots. It'll show you the charge meter visually on the side of the gun, and that can help you get a better idea of how long you can charge the shot for. With all that in mind, the Railgun is absolutely not dead by any means, and if you're still looking for a this handles everything loadout for both bugs and bots, yeah, I'm still gonna recommend the Railgun at the top level. Again, I'm gonna repeat myself. Kicking or griefing other players for not using the Railgun is cowardly and traitorous behavior. You use what you want and let other freedom spreaders use what they want. With this slightly nerfed Railgun though, you will have to think more about whether you want to pew pew away at any given big bad with a Railgun or if you want to burn a stratagem on them. I'm now at the point where I'll strongly consider chucking an orbital rail cannon strike at a charger just to quickly get it the hell out of my way. And on that note, orbital rail cannon strike remains, in my opinion, one of the best stratagems in the game for being able to deal big damage to big bad targets quickly and having unlimited uses with a not too bad cooldown time. I think finding the right pairing to the orbital rail cannon stratagem is going to depend on if you're fighting bugs or bots. For bugs, my near perma go-to has become the tag team of orbital rail cannon and the orbital laser. Orbital rail cannon is the first line of defense when any heavy armored enemies show up, while the orbital laser is the damn, shit is really hitting the fan right now, aka you're about to get bent over a barrel by multiple Bile Titans or something. It does suck that the laser only has 3 activations per mission, but they're damn good at what they do and they almost never go to waste. For bot killing, the stratagem I pair with the orbital rail cannon can also be the orbital laser for previously mentioned reasons, or the Eagle Airstrike, as they're godly at shutting down outposts from far away. Basically, if the mission involves me shutting down a lot of bot outposts, I will heavily consider the Eagle Airstrike, but if it's any other mission, I will probably go Orbital Laser. Now, I don't want to disrespect the 500 kg boys out there, because that sucker does a great job and makes a fine pairing with Orbital Rail. However, it does have a weirdly deceptive blast radius and a higher overall chance of effing up and not getting the job done or flat out whiffing. But if you're a cracked 500Ker, by all means, chuck away. Just give me the goddamn heads up before you do, thank you. Alright, final stratagem pick and our second slightly smaller elephant in the room, the shield generator pack, which also caught a nerf where there's an increased delay before recharging. Tried it out post nerf and yep, shocker, still goated. Yeah, it takes longer to come back, but it's a lifesaver when it works. The pack's greatest gift to the wearer is that if and when you get ganged up on or completely sucker punched, you'll have that extra layer of forgiveness which is huge. All of us are way too familiar with how quickly things can snowball out of control if you take even one hit at Helldive difficulty by an enemy who got in a lucky shot, and the shield pack is there to have your back. It won't straight up make you immortal, but it prevents you from taking damage that would slow you down or throw you 50 feet into a sharp rock, spine first, which again is usually the beginning of the end on Helldive difficulty, and that's good enough for me. So yeah, I'll obviously change things up depending on the mission, but at the end of the day, my personal best build in the game at high difficulty is the Slugger or Breaker shotgun, the Senator, a high explosive grenade, railgun, the shield generator pack, orbital rail cannon strike, and orbital laser on any of the armor sets I mentioned earlier. It is A, extremely close to the old best loadout, and yes, also B, very goddamn predictable and vanilla AF, but I ain't about to come out here and lie to y'all that I think quad flamethrower is the new meta or anything like that. Personally, I can't wait for Arrowhead to add more options and mix things up even more. Got another video on that I'll link down below, by the way. Spoiler warning on that video. And one more time, I can't stress this enough. Use whatever you want. This isn't the only build that works at the top level. I just think it happens to be the easiest to use effectively. You do you, and let other divers do the same. If you've got a great loadout you really enjoy, by all means, share it down in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching. Peace!